Hello, welcome back to How to RPG. Today's a little different. I had to make some last minute changes because normally today we would talk about castles and your adventures. And today we are going to be talking about castles, but I wanted to talk about the Bastion system that Wizards of the Coast has recently released as part of their unearthed arcana. So, for those of you who were hoping for that, this is probably one of the few times I will talk about unearthed arcana. It's one of the topics that does interest me, and considering I've given them such a hard time about castles, I thought it would be a good idea to go over it. So grab some food and drink, make sure you're comfortable, and we will proceed from there. And we'll get started, eh? Okay. Hi, welcome to How to RPG. My name is Fred Wheeler, and today I want to talk about bastions and castles in your adventures. This is Game Master guidance. I'm trying to give you some guidance around stuff, and normally, as I've said before, we talk about castles every 2 months and how they incorporate into your game or how they work in your game. Today's a little different. I'm giving the space to Wizards of the Coast because I have given them a hard time because they really have never had anything like a castle or a bastion system or a stronghold system whatsoever that was kind of worth even considering. And I don't know that the system that they have provided in Unearthed Arcana number 8 is, but we're going to find out. And I thought it would be nice to sort of go through the document bit by bit. Now, I've seen people watching the video that's on the Dungeons and Dragons YouTube channel and then commenting on it, and I found that to be completely useless to me. Mostly, I found people were not really saying very much and just letting Jeremy Crawford and Todd talk. So I'm not doing that. I will actually look at the stuff. I will read out sections where I think it's appropriate. I will not go over absolutely everything necessarily. I might return to this topic and this document again in the future, but my desire is to actually have a look and see how usable is it by a game master for those of you who want that level of complexity, and how much of it can we port over and use for ourselves. That's where my head is at. Now, I normally have a poll set up before I start these live streams, and I really wasn't too sure what sort of poll I should put up. And I suppose I should at least be asking the question, are people aware that there is a Bastions system that has just been released on Unearthed Arcana number 8 by Wizards of the Coast? We know that Matthew Colville has got his Strongholds and Followers book, and there are other people who've published stuff, but I didn't bother to ask that question. And maybe that's the question I should be using. Are you aware that there is a Bastion system that is being trialled, or at least being presented right now? So what we'll do is let's pump that in now. Let's type that in now. I'll get that poll going. Are you aware of the new Bastion system by Wizards of the Coast? That'll be the question. And we'll go here, yes, no, what's the other one that we put in here? What is a bastion? I guess that's another question that comes into here. And then those of you who are just watching, because you decide you like watching my stuff, just watching. Okay, let's put that poll up and see how people respond. And I will get myself back into position while you guys are commenting on that. I'll give you an idea of where you're at. Now, Fred Huber, hello. Fred Huber is a patron. Thank you for being here. Not heard of it, Fred. Okay, that's fine. Derp is also a patron. Thank you for being here, Derp. I do appreciate it. Thank you. Now, did I grab my... I didn't grab my phone. Why did I not grab my phone? I'm glad you're discussing this, although I don't like some of the specifics. I really like the idea and think it is the best thing I've seen from Wizards of the Coast in a while. And Derp, I would agree. Conceptually, I think it's the best thing I've seen them put out in a very long time. Whether it's usable is another thing, right? What else you got here? I find it usable by a DM because there isn't much accounting. Whereas, yeah, well, yeah, okay, yeah. So I understand if you ignore unearthed arcana. I do get it. I totally understand. So let's have a look at this document. So let me just at least transfer over so you can see what I'm looking at, and then we'll go through it bit by bit. I will keep a track of the chat, but I will have to grab my phone to do that, won't I? And I think that's mostly it. I don't know that I'm going to stick my head here. Let's move my position out of the way, and I can then at least make the text larger because it's very small and my eyes are old and I need to be able to see, and so do you. So are we big enough? We could probably make it even bigger than that. Let's have a look here. Some of you will be on a phone, I imagine, so that'll be a bit of a pain. Okay, that's nice and big. My head and my face will not be in the way, so let's transition that over, and that's what we've got. Okay, so I will grab my phone and pull up the chat. Let's get real. I'm hoping that my phone will keep the track up to date. It hasn't been doing a very good job recently. To be honest, it's been very frustrating actually. So don't want that, don't want that, don't want that. We want this. Okay. The Caxmax. Hello, Caxmax. How are you doing? Have heard of it. Watched a review. Don't have it to look at. Not a problem. I have the document in front of me. It's a long document. It's about 21 pages, the Bastion stuff. I'm not looking at the cantrip stuff, so don't worry about that. I do have a copy of the AD&D second edition equivalent, though. Okay, all right. So you'll be able to compare some of that against what they've got here. Now, to be completely frank, this I would say is the first time I've seen Wizards of the Coast actually put out something that's substantial with regard to castle construction or bastion or strongholds or anything like that. And it has been a long time. There's been nothing for 5e. There was nothing in 4e because I played 4e, and I do not remember there being anything being put out for that. 3.5 may have had a book, but I can't remember. I don't believe it was that extensive. In fact, if anything, I think it was mostly kind of rubbish. And then really, we have to go back to Dungeons & Dragons AD&D, Advanced Dungeons & Dragons 2nd edition, and of course, 1st edition AD&D in the Dungeon Master Guide. I'd also like to point out, they say this is playtest material for 2024, and this is the material that will go into the Dungeon Master Guide, okay? So the Bastion stuff is actually designed for Dungeon Masters and Game Masters. It's stuff that will be optional that you will decide whether you incorporate in your game or you don't. And that means you can change stuff. So it doesn't really matter what's here and whatever get transitions over to the new Dungeon Master Guide, even if you decide to buy it, which you may or may not decide to do so. You would be able to, and should always be able to, do whatever you like with it, no matter what the players might say. And the players might want it to be run as written in the Dungeon Master Guide, but that's not their prerogative. That is the Game Master's prerogative, the Dungeon Master's prerogative. And so you'll find a lot of the stuff I've in here, and I've already had a quick look, really is kind of tailoring itself more towards players and what players would want rather than the Game Master might want. But it at least gives you some guidelines. You can change some of these time frames and how effective something is and how often it could be available. That's all definitely possible, okay? So when you see this document and you think, oh, I don't like that, don't worry about it, because it's a Game Master tool. It's a Dungeon Master tool. It's not a player tool. It is not tied into a character sheet or a player character progression or anything like that, okay? None of it is stipulated it has to work this way, because it's really in a Dungeon Master Guide. Anything in a Dungeon Master Guide is up for the Dungeon Master to decide whether they use it or not. It's as simple as that. I do have, okay, what do you got here? Turns out you can type 5e unearthed Bastions in search, and the PDF comes up on top or near the top. I'm not really surprised. Did you also get an advertisement for D&D Beyond as well? I would imagine that would probably be the case. Okay. So looking through here, let's scroll on down. Bastions. Okay, and well, I'm just saying that's so let's have a look at the actual section on this Bastions. Bastions is a location that belongs to a player character. So this is the home, the stronghold, or place of power that the player's character will nurture and develop into their own in the course of their campaign. Okay, so we know all this. I think most of this I'm not really terribly interested about. It does talk about crafting magic items, conducting research with your Bastion, harvesting poisons, building ships, carrying out a broad range of other activities, which we'll look at very shortly. It's up to the Dungeon Master to decide whether Bastions are available in the campaign. And yeah, and I don't think every single campaign will necessarily suit Bastions. I think it's only going to work for somebody who's able to contend with the level of complexity that they've put here. I mean, you can tone that down, but there's always a level of management required when dealing with a stronghold. And if you're not really familiar or willing to deal with that, then you'll never bother using it. Not to mention the type of campaign. Some people run a lot of campaigns that are like a running fight, where there's no time. The ticking clock is so fast that you'd never be able to incorporate it into your game anyway. Okay, so you need to choose between going on an adventure and commanding a Bastion. Okay, well, that's interesting. I'm not quite sure I understand why you need to choose between. Can you not simply give it a command to a Bastion and then go off on your adventure? Maybe there's some more flexibility around that. They have special in-game benefits. So having a Bastion like a castle or a stronghold will certainly have some benefits, but there's also some restrictions and sort of some prerequisites or requirements on your part. It ties you to the world itself. So hopefully they have put in some things that complicate the situation when you have these, rather than it's all just beneficial. Because if it's just all beneficial, then why would you not want to have them as a player? Okay. They can undertake projects. Yes, random events. Okay, so I did have a quick look at their random event table, which we'll get to very shortly. And this is sort of while they're away, things might happen to their Bastion. I think it's a good idea. I don't think it's the only thing that you could include, because every time you ever have a castle, if you look at older games and other older campaigns, there's always some attack on the stronghold or castle or whatever. So I think that's the same sort of thing that we're looking at here. They're just trying to give you some ideas. Fall of the Bastion. Okay, all right, we're going to get to this. A creative playground for players, sharing storytelling, da-da-da. All right, DMs should be as permissive as possible with the stories players tell in the Bastion, but players should know their control goes only as far as the campaign's larger story, which the DM strives to make fun for everyone. I think in a very, what's the word? That paragraph right there kind of reeks of, we do not want to annoy the player characters, the people playing characters, but we do not want to annoy the dungeon masters or game masters who are trying to run the system. So basically they're trying to say, you know, DMs, try to allow as much as you can, but you need to, as a player, accept that the DM will change things dependent on how they see it needs to work for their campaign. Essentially, I think that's what they're trying to say there. Yeah. The Bastion event table is pretty lackluster, I think. I did look at it, and yeah, I would agree, Derp. It's pretty lackluster, but we'll get there. Okay, so key elements. Defenders and hirelings. To ease the burden on the player, we don't present or require statistics for Bastion hirelings or defenders. Thank God for that. All the players need to track is the number of each in their Bastion. Players assign names and personalities to their Bastion occupants if they see fit. So, which is good. I mean, that's what's going to happen anyway, whether you put that in the rules or not. Um, Spending gold. Traditionally, the idea was that you would collect your gold up. The more gold you had, the better you could build a stronghold or a castle at a later date. Once you had permission to build a stronghold from somebody who owned the kingdom or the nation, whatever it was. So, and there was usually a level that would take place in older versions of D&D. Okay, and it was actually near the tail end of that progression quite often. So it's interesting that they have. They've put down here when you reach level 5. So if you allow bastions in your campaign, characters acquire their bastion when they reach level 5. So the first thing I'm going to say is the problem is you have level 1 to 20 in Dungeons and Dragons 5e. And if you look at the older progression, since the older game really went from level 1 to 10, that's how many character levels you had. And because you were getting your castle, access to your stronghold at about level 7 or 8, roughly around there, if I recall, that meant it was at the tail end of your progression. If you look at how they structure and explain the different tiers of play, level 1 to 4, 5 to 10, is it 5 to 10, 11 to 15, and 16 to 20. Actually, I think level 5 makes no bloody sense. I think it should be level 10. Level 9 or 10 is a good time to start dealing with a bastion, because it's a different style of play, the tail end of the game. That's where castles and bastions would make much more sense rather than early on. You're really just a nobody, stranger, vagabond bum who kills monsters and loots bodies in early D&D. Before you get a reputation. You might be starting to get a reputation at level 5, but who's going to give you the keys to the kingdom when you're level 5? I don't know that I agree with that. I think the reason why Wizards of the Coast has done this, because I honestly, if you look at the progression, I think about level 9 or 10 makes much more sense. I think they went with level 5 because they know most game tables only play from level 1 to 10 and then they stop, and they never use the upper level of the game. So I think this is a failure on Wizards of the Coast to actually accept that this system needs to be integrated in the tail end, in the higher level of play process. And they're just hoping that people will use it because most games finish at level 10, because they don't know what to do with them after that. So yeah, that's where my head is going with this. Well, let's have a look at the chat just quickly. What do you got here? Derp. The whole system is really good idea. Its execution in the UA is hit and miss though. Yes, I would say that. I agree. Trenton, Hasty, how are you, Trenton? Hello, just stopping to say hi. Hope, yeah, no, we're doing all right. Whenever the campaign has the PCs doing something, they might cause a noble to grant them land. Yes. Yeah, I mean, you can always sort of grant land to them from a noble or a king or a queen or a monarchy or a baron or whatever you like, to actually build their castle, and permission to do so. I mean, you usually have to have permission as well. You can't just go and stick, I'm going to decide to stick a castle here. It's not like building a house. Do you know what I mean? Even building a house, you'd still have to have some sort of permission unless you own the land. A castle is not a house. A castle is a center of power, and it's a threat. So you have to make sure that everybody else is all right with that. Otherwise, you wind up with the leaders of your nation considering you a major threat that needs to be eliminated. So yeah, I can see that. You and the players can decide together how these bastions come into being. Okay, that's fine. Your character might inherit or receive a parcel of land on which to build their bastion, or they might take a pre-existing structure and refurbish it, which is like probably the most sensible thing to do. It's fair to assume the work has been going on behind the scenes of the campaign during the character's early adventuring career. So in other words, they assume that from level 1 to level 4, the bastion has been getting constructed. Okay. The problem is they're trying not to say give give your group a nice big chunk of time, a downtime to allow this to happen. The problem is that you can go from level 1 to level 4 in the space of a couple of days. So it almost always sort of breaks the narrative by thinking that way. So you kind of have to say, look, before they get the Bastion, you need to have allowed a certain amount of time to pass. Give them a nice big chunk of downtime. You finish their main quest, and then there's like a couple of months or more of just no activity where a Bastion can be built. That would be where my head is going with this. Okay. The shape, size, style, function of a character's Bastion is up to the players to determine. For example, a wizard might build a tower, a cleric might build a shrine, a fighter might build a fortified keep or a similar stronghold, a rogue might establish a hall, a guild hall or lodge. So we've been talking about all this sort of stuff in the past, and we've been building it straight. I've been building it straight into the character classes, but with a lot less meat and potatoes, just what I thought people needed to have, and the rest is just up for Game Master and players to decide amongst themselves. Okay, characters of other classes might choose one of these forms or combine them. Paladin's Bastion might be similar to a cleric's shrine, but as fortified. Okay, as a fighter's stronghold. Okay, so yeah, so they're kind of like it could take any kind of form you like, which is fine. That's cool. And hopefully it'll work. Okay, next, let's have a look here. We have some progression. So you start at level 5, and they can add to their Bastion at any time. They spend money and time depending on the facility. Each Bastion begins with 2 special facilities. Okay, and there's a section on special facilities, so we'll look at that very shortly. And the characters can add special facilities when they reach level 9, level 13, and level 17. Okay, so almost immediately, so level 9 to level 13, that's 4 levels. Then go 13 to 17, that's 4 levels. And then there's nothing at the tail end, which is fine. If you don't want to have something happening at level 20, that's cool. That's all good with me. Yeah, I almost feel like they probably should have, they could have just started at level 9 and gone 13, 17. How many special facilities do you need to have in your Bastion anyway? Okay, Bastion turns. As time passes in the campaign, players take Bastion turns to reflect the activity occurring in their Bastion, whether or not the characters are present. In other words, you don't have to be there. Okay, so you don't have to worry about downtime to actually go and do stuff with your Bastion. A Bastion turn occurs every 7 days of in-game time. Okay, though the DM can alter the frequency of the Bastion turn. Okay, well, which of course you're going to have to, because I've played campaigns that have gone from level 1 to level 20 in the space of 7 days. Like, it's that quick. Everything is sort of on a run. In fact, there'll be quite a few campaigns that are completed after the space of 2 or 3 weeks, which is only 21 days. So you really wouldn't get very far if you used a Bastion turn of 7 days. So yeah, I can see you're going to have to adjust that for sure. On a Bastion turn, the character can issue orders to their special facilities in the Bastion, or issue the maintain order to the entire Bastion. One of the things I kind of don't like about this Bastion stuff is that it looks like it's just something the players get that's extra, that's more beneficial than a problem. Rather than, this is actually, now your task is to protect this location. Whether that's you using diplomacy or having to wage war against another army, or defend your castle from attack because it's in a vital location. I think they may have kind of missed the point of the Bastion and the castle. But we'll keep reading how the Bastion turns work. We'll read that in a second. Let me just have a look at chat. Hello, how are you, Charles? Charles Butler is a patron. Thank you for being here. Part of the regional defences, yes. Yeah, having a bastion or a castle of some kind, it's really about regional defenses. You are now part of the landscape. You're part of the wider community. And yeah, just tuned in. Has Wizard of the Coast remade strongholds and followers? Okay, so interesting you might say this. I don't know that they have. To be fair, Matthew Colville's Strongholds and Followers, that book is based off older versions of D&D and the books that were created there, but with Matthew Colville and his design team's vision. So if we were saying, okay, Wizards of the Coast is stealing from Matthew Colville has either borrowed or stolen from early Dungeons and Dragons or TSR in terms of how castles and strongholds work. So, yeah, I think it's much of a muchness. I do think that some of their systems might be very similar. I believe Taryn Indostructor Boy did mention that some of their systems looked very similar to the Strongholds and Followers book. But again, like I say, Strongholds and Followers is based off early D&D. So, yeah, so if we say Gary Gygax was the first one to do role-playing game books that looked at castles, well, there's been books on castles before Gary. And then, okay, all right, then they developed that and went into TSR with Gary, sort of pushing that, and then other people came in on board once Gary was out of the picture, still under TSR. Then it goes to Wizards of the Coast, and then they don't really pay any attention to strongholds and castles, and then suddenly Matthew Colville goes back and looks at the past and says, let's do this, let's do Strongholds and Followers. I don't know that we can say they're stealing from Matthew Colville, because Matthew Colville got it from somewhere else anyway. That would be my opinion on that one. So I wouldn't get too hung up on that issue. Okay, what else you got here? Or 60 years between adventures, like between The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings. Well, yeah, there was true, Fred. Some castles took 60 years to build, for sure. I agree. But the keep tower itself, when it gets laid down, it's usually the first tower to go up, right? If you have a castle, it's usually a 2-story fortified tower, and then once you've built that, then you build other aspects around that castle, and then you have to put in a wall, a protective wall, a curtain wall, and these things take time. So there's always going to be a starting point where you start small and it expands out. Projects where they take decades to build, and they constantly need to be protected while it's being built, cause a lot of problems. So yeah. And also too, I mean, a lot of castles had like wooden forts built beside them to protect them while the castle was under construction. So there was places for troops to stay. Okay, all right, let's keep going. Yeah, so let's get real. Wizards of the Coast has borrowed from what TSR did, but they own everything that TSR has done, and they bought the company, remember? And, Matthew Colville has borrowed from them. I think it being more beneficial than a problem would be needed for the players to want to bother with it. Yeah, so that's true, Fred. I think you're right. It has to be, and particularly with our modern community of players who don't see the point in doing anything unless everything is useful mechanically to them in some way, and mostly mechanically useful to you with regard to combat. I mean, that's the reality. I wouldn't say everybody's like that, but I would say the vast majority of our community are really, unless you're playing a retro clone or older versions of D&D, most people playing 5e, for example, are really only interested in a lot of the mechanical combat stuff. So yes, I would agree. But there's got to be some payoff. There's always a narrative behind this, right? And the whole idea of a castle is to lean into the narrative. Okay, what do we got here? Noble to PCs here. Take this land now you have to defend the area on the map. Yep. And that's, yeah. Okay, let's keep going. By default, Bastions turns occur every 7 days. Give players Give characters regular opportunity to issue orders and reap the benefits. So what are the benefits? Typical situation. The characters are on a long journey away from their bastion. After the characters have been away for 7 days, they might time for a bastion turn. Since they're not there, resolve the maintenance order for the bastion. Okay, so we have a maintenance order. Then roll for the bastion event. So if you're not there and it's time to do your bastion turn, you go into maintenance order, which basically I'm assuming means you just make sure that the bastion is looked after and it's not falling apart, and then something occurs that you won't find out about until you get back. Okay, all right, that's fine. Next, the characters spend 7 days or more in their bastion between adventures. Okay, so this is using downtime now. You might say you have 6 weeks to spend in your bastion. Go ahead and resolve 6 bastion turns. Oh my god. Okay, I see where they're going with this. All right. Next, I can see that this is going to actually, I think this is one aspect of it that would turn dungeon masters or game masters away from using downtime in the adventure, because they probably wouldn't want to have that happen too often during their campaign if they're going to go by these guides word for word, because there would be too many things they could do or make in their bastion given it's only 7 days. So if you suddenly have 6 weeks, well, that's 6 different things you could potentially do. It's potentially 6 different magic items, I'm assuming, that could be created in that 6 weeks, which is a lot faster than what the crafting system and construction process is normally in Dungeons and Dragons 5e. So there's a bit of a problem. But it depends on how powerful those magic items are and what they are. Okay, next. The character's return to the Bastion in the midst of an adventure. You might say you have just enough time to issue an order. If you like, take the Bastion turn before you leave, again in the morning. Okay, so this is sort of mid-adventure, returning back and forth to rest. Okay, so they've covered that as well. The characters are adventuring near their Bastion and spend every night in their Bastion. Okay, all right, so they don't have to travel too far. They're using it. It's kind of like Keep on the Borderlands. You go out for the day, you do your thing, you come back to your castle or your Bastion. You might say it's been a week since your last Bastion turn, so you can take a new one now. All right, so they've looked at really all the different situations that would generally arise when you're adventuring in your campaign to sort of cover that, which is fine. I still see there being problems with the 7-day thing, but we'll go back. I'm not going to say it again. I'm going to try not to anyway. Sometimes you might want to slow the pace of the Bastion turn. If the characters have a long period of downtime between adventures, oh, here we go, say 6 months or more, you might call for a Bastion turn every month instead of every 7 days. So they've actually allowed a bit of flexibility with this, and they've actually stated as such. So they're not, if anything, this looks to me like not a set of rules for a game master to follow, but just guidelines, which is fine. That's really what it should be. If you're dealing with castles and bastions, it should be just guidelines. Absolutely. Okay, what else you got here? The Cax Max. Level up has character bonuses for having a domain. Things like leadership, stat boost, survival skills, lower prices if buying in your own place, and so on. Okay. It only lets you get 1 magic item per level cap. Okay, all right. And then what else you got here? Make the PCs bring the materials needed for the magic item found during the adventure, or it can't be made. And yeah, and I think a lot of magic item creation and construction and adventures, a lot of game masters do require that you have to go and get the materials to actually build it first, and then you need to have somebody that is willing to do the work, and then it's a waiting game. But I do like the fact that they've said the Bastion turn doesn't necessarily have to be 7 days. So, okay. And even if you're not dealing with a long period of downtime, like 6 months or whatever, you could change that. So, yeah. Aim for about 6 to 8 Bastion turns per level. Shit, that's a lot. That's a lot of Bastion turns per level. Okay, so I can immediately see a problem with this. If the characters are adventuring at a breakneck pace and gaining a level every week, well, shit, 5e, you're going to be gaining a level faster than every week. They'll have no time to enjoy the benefits of their Bastion. On the other hand, if they're spending extended time between adventures and level gains, paced out, Bastion turns ensure that they won't amass more Bastion points than you can use. Okay, so in other words, what they're saying here in that first sentence is you really shouldn't be having more than, you're not aiming to have 6 to 8 Bastion turns per level. You shouldn't really have more than 6 to 8 in a level. I think that's what they're trying to say. Now, here's the problem. Having run low level play and level 20 games and higher, and games that are from level 10 through to level 20, it is very rare that you would have a situation arise where the characters would not level up in a couple of days. Just because, first off, level 1, you don't actually have to do very much to level up to level 2. So it's not going to work at level 2 or level 1, level 2, even level 3. Because as you progress, you're facing stronger foes, greater threats, you get more experience points. So the rate at which you level up actually is quite quick. So that's not going to work. And I know at level 20, for example, it was not uncommon for me to find that I could run one single encounter and they would level up from level 15 to 16 or from 16 to 17 or even going from level 19 to 20. Really, I might be able to run 2 combats and they were done. And I would have to make them so hard, those in combats, with such powerful enemies and foes, if I'm dealing with just combat as the mechanism for leveling up, that they're worth so much because they are so powerful. So I think this like, setting it every 7 days is kind of, it just needs to be X days or X period of time. But I think they're just trying to be specific so people don't get lost. Okay, what else we got here? Real world military is 99% waiting, training for something to happen, and 0.9% getting issued. Yeah. Now, so what Fred Huber is saying is that if you are in the military and you're fighting, you don't spend a lot of your time actually fighting all the time. This is one of the reasons why the adventuring day has always been a complete load of bollocks, frankly. Okay, Bastion points. How does this work? Each special facility in the Bastion generates Bastion points during a Bastion turn, depending on the facility and the Bastion order issued in that facility. Players are responsible for tracking how many Bastion points their characters has, and the Bastion points can't be transferred between characters or their Bastions. Okay, so if you have more than one Bastion owned by another character, you can't swap them over, which is good. And I like the fact that they've stipulated that it's the responsibility of the player to track how many Bastion points they have. Not to say that game masters and dungeon masters won't try to track that themselves as well, so that the players don't make a mistake or add a few more that they weren't supposed to. But I'm glad that they haven't pointed that out. Okay, a character can spend Bastion points to acquire magic items through their Bastion, or to receive certain or other special rewards. Okay, all right. Bastion points are an abstraction, reflecting the benefits characters accumulate when their Bastions are operating. Exactly how amassing and spending Bastion points leads to a character acquiring a magic item is up to the player's imagination. They keep talking about magic items a lot. Okay, perhaps the Bastion hirelings spread the word that the character is looking for a particular item. With sufficient time and goodwill built up in the community, the item finds its way to the Bastion as a gift. Alright. Perhaps Bastion hirelings work tirelessly to create the item the character desires. This is all fine, provided you don't have a game master who wants the players to do the hard yakka and work, because they view the characters as the only ones really powerful enough in their world to be able to do that. Um, Traditionally, magic item creation was done when your character went into retirement quite often, or then near the later end of your career. So yeah, okay, let's do this. Keep going. Do I understand this? Accumulating Bastion points. When characters issue orders to special facilities in their Bastion, these facilities generate Bastion points. Bastion facilities don't generate Bastion points. Okay, all right. So basic facilities don't. Special facilities would then. Each special facility description indicates the number of Bastion points that facility generates when it completes an order. I see. If a character issues the maintain order to the Bastion, each special facility instead generates 1d4 Bastion. Geez, that's a lot. How many Bastion points do you need, though, to actually do something that's quite impressive? Special facilities that have been shut down or lost their hirelings because of an event don't generate Bastion points. Okay, so you could lose your hirelings and then that special facility doesn't work anymore. Okay, okay. While they're out of commission. All right, so let's keep going. Characters can use money to influence the rate at which facilities generate Bastion points. Spending 25 gold when issuing a Bastion order to a facility allows the player to roll the dice for that facility's Bastion point generation twice and use. Oh my, you can double it twice. Twice the higher result. Okay, characters can't use this option when issuing the maintain order to the Bastion. Okay, so maintain order is just going to just tick along quietly. All right, let's keep going. Acquiring magic items. So this I think is probably, because 5e does not really require magic items to be possessed by player characters for them to be successful. They are super powered enough. They have ways of getting around magic resistance. Spellcasters can get around magic resistance, quite a lot. Or damage resistance, should I say. More like damage resistance rather than magic resistance. Something like the monk can strike and do something that is essentially a magic blow later on. And then you've got your paladin that's got a smite, so they don't have to really worry about that. So the fighter, the ranger usually, although the ranger does eventually get spells, so that's not. I would say the fighter and the barbarian will tend to be the ones that might find themselves struggling more. But then their role changes. Anyway, acquiring magic items. Each time a character gains a level, you can spend that Bastion point to acquire a single magic item. Okay, each time your character gains a level, you can spend their Bastion points to acquire. Okay, so whatever Bastion points you are, there's going to be a cost that you can spend, but you can only do that with your Bastion and your character's going from one level to another level. Okay. So they're trying to restrict it. The problem is that you could wind up with quite a few magic items if you can accrue enough Bastion points. If anything, you want your adventure to stretch and to slow right down so you can acquire this more often. So it's potentially possible, if somebody staggers the adventure and stretches it out so we get those 7 days in there, you may well be able to pull off a magic item every single level. From level 5. So that's 15 magic items, potentially rare and above, or even at least uncommon. Uncommon magic items aren't weak. Common magic items, they are relatively weak and usually consumable. But an uncommon magic item, well, that's a +1 sword, isn't it? Or a +1 hammer, or +1 weapons are uncommon usually. So I can see a little bit of a headache there. Let's keep going though. So the next text. The Bastion point cost of each magic item is based on the item's rarity as shown in the spending Bastion points table. If a rarity has a level prerequisite, the character must be that level or higher to get the item. Okay, so they have tried to stop people getting rare items until level 9. At least that's something. Okay. A character must be in their Bastion to claim a magic item acquired with the Bastion points. If the character is away from the Bastion, the magic item remains secure in the Bastion until the character arrives to claim it. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So essentially, you'll only be creating common or uncommon from level 5 to 8. But once you get to level 9, provided you have enough Bastion points, you could potentially get a rare magic item. But let's have a look at how expensive it is to get a rare magic item if you're level 9. You need 250 Bastion points. So how many Bastion points would you earn if the Bastion is just doing maintenance? If it's just maintenance level, how many points are you likely to be earning? I'm kind of interested to see what that means. So right now, I could see the likelihood of getting anything other than a common or an uncommon magic item is pretty slim. And a common magic item, that's 20 Bastion points. Uncommon is 70 Bastion points. So now we need to know how likely it is that you would have, 20 Bastion points by the time you go from one level to another. How fast will you accrue those? Because I wouldn't worry about level 17, 13, or 9. Rare, very rare, and legendary. I think that the number of points required is so high that you probably won't have too much of an issue, but we'll have a look at it in a second. Characters who have reached level 20 can use Bastion points to acquire a magic item each time they earn a bonus feat. Every 30,000 experience points above 355,000 experience points. Whew, okay, all right. Let's keep going. So there's a question we need to ask ourselves. How fast can you accrue Bastion points if you're just on maintenance and you're off doing your adventures and you can't give an order? What do you got here, Derp? I prefer just giving out magic items how and when chose over, yeah, a procedural mechanical way. Yeah, I think it's taking too much agency away from the game master. We talk about player agency, but I agree that magic items being awarded because their Bastion is pumping out these magic items, which I'm sure players would love. But you could use this system and just ditch this completely, this magic item creation stuff and how this works. Like, yes, your Bastion can create magic items, but it doesn't work like this. It works the way I think it should work, which is whatever is going to work for the story or should I say, the adventure or campaign. Okay, let's keep going. Other uses of Bastion points. On gaining a level, a character can spend 10 Bastion points to ensure that word of their heroic deeds spreads throughout the region around their Bastion. For the next 7 days, the character has advantage on all charisma checks while within 50 miles of their Bastion. Okay, sure. When a character dies, the character can spend 100 Bastion points to return to life in their Bastion at the next dawn. After spending BP in this way, a character can't do so again until gaining at least one level. So, I guess let's discuss the two aspects to here. Spending 10 Bastion points to be able to give out the word that you are a heroic individual and that you should be respected or feared, I think takes a little bit away from the players doing their job, which is playing their character in environments, towns, cities, civilization or communities, and spreading the word verbally themselves. I don't really like this as a way of approaching it. I'm not really too concerned about advantage on all charisma checks, for 7 days and 50 miles of your Bastion. That bit I don't really care too much about, but I think making it a number, for those people who like that sort of thing, maybe it'll suit them. I don't think it's something I would include myself. I've never been very fond of dice rolls to determine the outcome of a dialogue between a nobody. Maybe I'd use dice, but I think it's ultimately more fun when the conversation and what the players decide to say is driving everything. But I can see people who might use this. when a character dies, now the dying thing, 10 Bastion points for spreading the word of your fame is one thing, 100 Bastion points to return to life in their Bastion the next dawn. I can see a lot of game masters not ever using this. I can see a lot of game masters struggling to decide whether they should use it. For me, it means nothing to whatsoever. This would be a pointless system to use in my game because I don't make the decision about what happens when a character dies. When I run the game, as a lot of you probably already know, I simply ask the player what they want to do. Do you want to make a new character? Do you have a means of bringing your character back to life? If you don't, and you still want to play the character, then we'll have a dialogue and decide on a narrative way of bringing back that character. And usually I do that with a complication that they can work off in the future. So this would be utter waste of time in a game, because most of the time when somebody dies in my games, even when I'm not the game master and somebody else in my group is doing it, we just go reincarnate. Even if we have to go and find a druid, it doesn't matter, because people in my group love reincarnate, and yeah, we wind up with the singing and the chanting taking place. So yeah, it wouldn't work very well in my game because, as I said, I don't really worry about character death that much, and I don't even make a decision about it. So yeah. Yeah, I get the idea of what they're trying to do here with the Bastion. The Bastion is supposed to be trying to achieve a lot of different things. I would look at this paragraph here as you could use it or you could ditch it. You know, you could use it or you decide, nah, I'm not going to use it that way. I think most of the time nobody's ever going to use this system. 100 Bastion points, return to life. If you got a game master who doesn't want your character to return to life, it won't matter if you've got a Bastion system because they just won't use this bit of it. So it seems pointless to have it there. But anyway, let's keep going. Bastion facilities. When a character gains a Bastion, it comes with 2 basic facilities. Okay, so you get 2 basic facilities, 2 special facilities. Both types of facilities are explained below. Thank God for that. Let's have a look and see what we got here. I'm sorry if I'm going slower than you were hoping, but I have to understand what they're trying to communicate here. I'll tell you right now, I suspect I'll be returning to this document quite a lot in the future. Since running adventures, this series that I do, it's got a lot of things that we discuss usually, so we might be looking at sections of this in the future too. Okay, so don't worry if I don't get to everything. The amount of space in a facility determines its maximum area in 5-foot squares. Oh, okay. I've got square counting. As shown in the facility space table. Players can configure the squares of a facility as they please on the Bastion's map. The squares can be stacked so that a facility's area is just distributed over multiple levels or stories. So cramped is 4 squares. Well, that means that's 10 foot by 10 foot. That's not very big. I'm not sure what you could do with that. How would you be able to fit in 2? If you have a space that's only 10 feet, 4 squares cramped, how could you possibly fit in 2 special facilities and 2 basic facilities? I think right now the facility space maximum seems utterly ridiculous. I think this needs to change. This makes no sense. You could not do this. This is not practical. Certainly, this is what happens when you just have a little hovel and you can sleep in a shed. You're essentially sleeping in a garden shed. This is the cramped facility. Roomy, 16 squares. So 16 squares is there. It's 9. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 is about 4 by 4. 4 by 4 is a little bit better. So now you would probably have space, about 4 squares for your basic facilities, 2 basic facilities and 2 special facilities. I suppose you could, that seems about the smallest you could possibly go. I don't quite understand why they've done that. Anyway, what else have we got here? I don't know if my chat is staying up to date, but I am checking. I'll refresh it and make sure that it is, and I'll punch in here to see if it's not doing that. I'm just putting an X in just to mark it so I know where I'm up to, okay? All right. And then vast, 36 squares. Well, that's better. So I feel like the cramped one is utter nonsense. Just ditch that. That's just ain't going to work. I think they need to change these numbers. Cramp needs to be 16 squares. Roomy needs to be bigger, and then vast needs to be bigger than that again. Something like that. Okay, Bastion map. A player is encouraged to create a floor plan of their character's Bastion, configuring the Bastion's basic and special facilities as they see fit. In addition to these facilities described below, the Bastion can have the following features. Okay, so you can have a closet, you can have doors and windows, okay, you can have corridors, ramps, staircases, defensive walls, and it gives you some guidance around this. Let's read that little section there. So what do we got here? A player's character can add defensive walls around their Bastion. A defensive wall is 20 feet high, okay, fair enough, and may include a walkway along the top of it, which means to access it, such as a ladder or a lift. So you'd have to have a ladder or lift to get to it. Each 50-foot square of defensive wall takes 10 days to build and costs 25 gold pieces. Well, they've given you all the maths that you needed to deal with building a wall. Now, as long as you've got somebody who knows how to figure out, okay, how many bits of wall do I need to make? You figure out how many squares worth of wall you need to make, and they're all 5 feet, and then you multiply that by 10. That tells you how many days, and when it comes to your cost, then you multiply the number of squares of wall that you need to make that are 5 feet by 5 feet by 250. That gives you the cost. So that's actually quite clean and neat. That makes it a lot easier to sort of distribute how you're going to build your defensive wall for your bastion or your castle. Well done. Good. I'm glad it's there. And it'll be easy enough to do the maths. If your bastion is completely enclosed by defensive walls and it comes under attack, see Bastion events section at the end of the document, reduce by 2 the number of dice you roll to determine how many Bastion defenders are lost in the attack. Oh, I see. Okay. So when your Bastion gets attacked, you're going to lose defenders. And so you can reduce the number by 2. Reduce by 2 the number of dice you roll. How many dice do you roll to determine your defenders getting lost? That's going to be interesting. I mean, that makes sense. But if you have a defensive wall, most castles don't really need to worry too much about defenders being lost because, I mean, that's the whole point of having a castle is you don't need a lot of people to defend it. And the chances are they have far better cover than anybody else does. So they're probably not going to get hit by missile fire. Anyway, we'll see how we go. I don't know how they've calculated it. Maybe the losses to defenders is quite small. Combining bastions. 2 or more players have the option of combining their characters' bastions into a single structure. Oh, good lord. Doing so doesn't change the number of special facilities each bastion have. How these special facilities work or who gets to issue the orders to each bastion. Each bastion retains its own hirelings, which can be sent to or share with another bastion. Which can't be shared. So you can't share your hirelings. You can't share your. Okay, so they're still distinct, even though you've put them close together. Bastion defenders are handled differently. If some event deprives one character's bastion of their defenders, another character can apply all or some of their losses to their bastion instead, provided the 2 bastions are combined. Okay, so there is a benefit to combining bastions together, I guess. So I suppose you could have 2 characters building a castle together, and although they have their own sort of sections and areas that they control and manage, it all comes together in some way. All right, okay. So that means if you have 5 players, they could build themselves you could have all 5 players combining their bastions together into a large castle. It's not a stupid thing to do. Rather than having everybody having their own separate bastion, you could have it combined into one. So they are trying to they're trying to sort of at least give you a flexibility to work it all together in some way. Okay, let's keep going. Bastion facilities. Basic Bastion facilities don't generate Bastion points, as we've figured that out. Yep, but they can inspire meaningful role-play opportunities and enhance a Bastion's vanillist. Yeah, whatever. Who cares? So kitchen functions, start a game. All right, so really, I don't need to go over this. So bedrooms, courtyards, dining room, kitchen, parlor, storage room, washroom. So the ones you're going to have a bedroom, and you're probably going to have a kitchen. And then if you go, you might find yourself eating in your kitchen at the bench, like some of us already do. And then of course, if it's a bit bigger, then of course you're going to wind up with a dining room probably, and then later on maybe a storage room or washroom. And your courtyard and your parlor are probably going to be one of the last things you consider as basic functions. Okay, so basic facilities come with non-magical furnishings and decoration appropriate for that facility. Okay. Basic facilities can be enlarged and new ones added by spending gold pieces and in-game time as discussed in the sections that follow. Any number of basic facilities can be built or enlarged at the same time. Okay, a character doesn't need to be in their bastion while new facilities are being added or enlarged. So you just need to give the orders, I'm assuming, and make those decisions when you are there, and then just leave it to do its thing. Okay, so adding basic facilities. So now they've given you a cost. A character can add a basic facility to their bastion by spending money and in-game time. The cost of adding a basic facility and the in-game time required depends on the facility's space as shown in the added basic. So basically, if you're going with cramped or roomy or vast, then this is the different cost for each thing and the days that it takes to actually construct it. Fair enough. Okay. Although, as I said before, I think cramped is kind of just functionally silly. But anyway, if you want to live in a garden shed, you can. And you can have a couple of garden sheds connecting each other. Enlarging basic facilities. So now there's some rules around enlarging a basic facility. So enlarging, no in-game benefit to be gained by enlarging a basic facility. So there's no in-game benefit. It's just cosmetic reasons you do it. And how much money does it cost? Well, adding basic facilities is 500 gold pieces, 20 days. Roomy is 1,000 gold pieces in 45 days. Vast is 300 gold pieces and 125 days. So that's for each additional basic room or facility. And then if you want to expand that, go from cramped to roomy, it's 500 gold pieces, another 25 days. And if you want to go from roomy to vast, then it's 2,000 gold pieces in 80 days. Well, they've at least give you some of the maths done for you, so you don't have to figure that out. Whether it's accurate or makes sense to you and your world, at least they're giving you some numbers that you might need to know if you want to do those sorts of things. Okay, let's keep going. Special facilities. And then we got orders here. I'm kind of really interested in the order stuff, but let's go into this. It's top of the hour. I might just go take a quick break, come back, and then I'll start covering special orders. We're on page 25, and I would imagine we're going to get through special facilities, a good portion of it, and the orders. So yeah, I think what I will do is I'll go take a quick break, gives my voice a chance to recover. And then we'll come back and we'll continue. So I'll get Arnold Schwarzenegger will look after you, and I'll be back in 5 minutes or less. Okay. Oops. Give me a second. Just knocked myself out of position here. Get my chair back into the right place. And I'm going to need a lozenge because I'm starting to lose my voice a little bit. So, okay. All right. Good. Cool. I'm back. So we're going to go back into this topic in a second and have a look at it. But I just wanted to make sure that everything is... get a dog, no mopping. Very good. So I wanted to look at the AD&D book, Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, first ed edition. And in this book, Gary Gygax laid out the costs of building a lot of stuff. Hello, Nacho Man. I didn't spot you in the chat, so I apologize if I didn't see you. How you doing? Nacho Man is a patron. Thank you for being here. And I see that my phone is not keeping up to track with my live chat. So if I've not seen something that you've commented on, I do apologize. I've just updated my phone now. But I wanted to have a quick look and see if the castle wall section marries up with what the calculations that Gary Gygax had put forward. Yes. So Nacho Man is the one who sent me this book. Thank you, Nacho Man. So construction of castles. Be very careful as I turn the pages. And the only thing I'm going to check is the construction of a wall section. And that is on page 106. Because I'm assuming that Wizards of the Coast has not tried to figure it out themselves. Okay, interesting. Here we go. So, we have a section of wall, 5 feet wide, 20 feet high. So they've gone with 20 feet high, just like Gary had calculated. The length of the wall is, oh, okay. And that's a curtain wall. So I think maybe their maths is a little bit different. Because they're going with 5 foot worth of wall. How wide it is, how long it is. Yeah, so I think, if anything, their calculation has a section of wall for your Bastion, probably costing more than what Gary would have stipulated it would cost. So now I know. Making it modular. We talked about turning the castle construction into a modular system, so you could just take pieces and put it together. So I think it's a fairly good idea. All right, let's go on to special facilities now. And I'm ready to go over to this document. Here it is. Here we go. Special facilities. Special facilities are locations in the Bastion where the activities performed there can yield an in-game benefit. A character's Bastion initially has 2 special facilities of the character's choice for which they are qualified. All right. Each special facility can be chosen only once unless its description says otherwise. Fine. Unlike basic facilities, special facilities can't be bought. A character gains them through level advancement. Oh, I see. At level 9, a character gains 2 additional special features. So you start off at level 5 with 2 special facilities. At level 9, you get another 2. That'll make 4 of their choice, which they qualify for. Then 1 additional facility so they get another 1 at level 13, so that makes they get their 5 now. And another 1 at level 17, so by level 17 you'll have 6, not 6, but we could have that as well. By level 17, we'll have at least 6 special facilities if you fulfill the requirements. The special facility acquisition table shows the total number of special facilities a character's in a character's Bastion. Assume that construction is ongoing in the time leading up to the character reaching the new level. So each new facility immediately becomes part of the character's Bastion when the character reaches the level. So one of the things that I found required a little bit of tracking on my part was time. Because when you have a castle or a stronghold being built, From the time they decide to build it, from the time they finish the job, or the job is finished by whoever they contracted the job to, I have to keep track of that. So I had to keep track of downtime, time in game. That kind of eliminates this by having it based around your character level. For me, I don't know that the maths was that difficult that I would say it was a problem, because I just need to remember, okay, a couple of days have passed, and I would just add them to the notes, and when it added up to the total number of days required, once they've paid the entire bill, the project was completed, their castle was finished, their manor was completed, stuff like that. So there is a little bit of calculation required. This is obviously trying to make it a little bit easier for a game master to do, rather than having to count days passing. Although there's still days passing here, like we still have time required to pass. If you're going to have time required to pass to go from one thing to the other, why would you start talking about levels? This is the problem I see, is like they've still got time requirements, but then they're looking at levels. So you either use their level advancement, or you use time required to pass. You can't have both, because that's going to be silly. That's going to just wind up confusing people. So I think they've put both systems in there, assuming that some people will like less mathematics to do. I think that's possibly what's going on. Fast built, well, cheap. Yeah. Fast built and cheap. Pick two. Each time a character gains a level, that character can replace one of their Bastion special facilities with another special facility for which the character qualifies. What? Each time a character gains a level, that character can replace one of their Bastion special facilities with another special facility for which the character qualifies. Again, assume that construction has been ongoing prior to the change. Okay, so my calculations are correct in terms of how many Bastion special facilities you have. But that makes sense. So it doesn't make sense. If you level up, you mean you can get rid of your workshop and replace it with a laboratory? Or you can go from, I don't know, whatever else we're going to talk about, but you can go from one thing to another. This seems narratively fucked up. It doesn't make sense. It's like, oh, you know that firebolt cantrip that you used to be able to cast because you'd memorized it? Well, now you don't have it memorized, and instead you have Ray of Frost memorized, and you can use that all the time because you can just switch it out. I don't like switching out cantrips. I know it gives players flexibility, but it makes no sodding sense whatsoever. Yeah, I'm not keen on it whatsoever. Just give them more cantrips. If you really want to do that sort of thing, just give them more cantrips. God, sheesh. This is one of those, this is a very gamey thing to do. It's like, oh, you can just switch out your special facilities every time you level up. Each special facility, requirements. Each special facility has a level. A character must be that level or higher to gain that facility. Okay. A special facility might also have a prerequisite the character must meet to gain that facility. For example, only a character who can use an arcane focus or spell focus can have an arcane study special facility. I'm going to love looking at this table and breaking this down. Space. Special facilities occupies a certain amount of space. Okay, yep. Just as with a basic facility, a player can configure the space or the special facility as desired. Oh, okay, fine. I get it. Hirelings. A special facility comes with one or more hirelings who work in or maintain the facility, which is what followers should be doing, right? Hirelings in this case are just paid individuals, I guess. Hirelings also execute Bastion orders as described in the following section. A character can assign names and personalities. Yeah, so we've seen that. You can do all the little fiddly bits with it if you want to. Non-player characters. Each special facility in the Bastion is assumed to generate enough income to pay the salary of their hirelings. Thank God, Wizards of the Coast. I love to see that actually there. The fact that each special facility in the Bastion is assumed to generate enough income to pay the salary of their hirelings, so you don't have to track that shit. Hirelings follow the orders they are given and are assumed to be loyal to the Bastion's owner. Wonderful. Awesome. Love it. Good news. Good news. Orders. On a Bastion's turn, a character in that Bastion can issue special orders called Bastion orders to one or more of their Bastion special facilities. The character needn't issue orders to all the special facilities in their Bastion on a given turn, or Bastion turn. You can just go with the maintain order as you what the maintain order is unusual. It is issued to the whole Bastion rather than to one or more special facilities. Oh, I see. If a character isn't in their Bastion on a given Bastion turn, the Bastion acts as though it was issued the maintain order on that turn. Okay, so basically, all right. So you can't issue maintain order on one special facility and not another, even if you're in the Bastion. Otherwise, it's just the default, basically. It's the default order. Each time a character issues a Bastion order, the character gains a number of Bastion points, okay, determined by the die roll. Okay, we'll have a look at that in a second. These look like these special orders. Let's have a look at them in a second, and I'll go over that. Time system. If for basic facilities, level system is for special facilities. Okay, so time system is for the basic ones, and the level system is for the special facilities. That is annoying. Yeah, two different systems just makes it a little bit hard to deal with. I'm going to take the hat off, people. It's getting too hot. Let's cram a special facility that has... yeah, it is. It's a little silly. It's a little silly. But let's have a look at the actual orders you can give. Crafting. Hirelings in the special facility begin crafting an item that can be made in that facility. You can also do the work yourself. Fair enough. Good. But if you do so, the work is suspended when you leave the Bastion until you return. Well, that's good too. That's fine. During the time required to craft an item, the facility can't be used to craft anything else, even if a special ability allows the facility to carry out 2 orders at once. Interesting. Okay, so they have put a fair amount of restriction around that, and most of it kind of makes sense too. That last little bit, I'm not sure how to comment on that. I have to think about this a bit more. And power. The special facility confers a temporary empowerment to the player character or someone else. What the heck is that? I don't understand this, but okay. Harvest. A resource is produced in the special facility, and hirelings gather it. You can also do the gathering yourself. So I guess, is this harvesting herbs or something? But if you do so, the work is suspended when you... Alright, so it's the same thing. If you're doing it yourself, the work is suspended when you're not there. You come back, you've got downtime, you finish the job. Otherwise, you get your hirelings to do the work for you. Which means you're probably most of the time going to get hirelings to do it for you. Unless, of course, you feel like it's something you want to do yourself. Or all your hirelings died. Otherwise, you're self-employed now. Alright, so it reads exactly like the other one for the crafting. Okay, maintain. Now this is the one that's interesting. All the Bastion's hirelings focus on maintaining the Bastion rather than executing orders in special facilities. Issuing this order prohibits other orders from being issued to the Bastion on the current Bastion turn. So it's really your default when you're not there. Each time the maintain order is issued, the character who issued the order gains 1d4 Bastion points for each special facility in their Bastion. Okay, so let's have a think about that. You have a Bastion turn. Bastion turn takes about 7 days, unless you change that number. You roll d4 for every special. So at level 5, you would get probably about, on average, about 4, because you'll be rolling a 2d4 for each special facility. So you're going to get about 4 Bastion points every 7 days. So how long would it take you to get to a point where you could actually have enough points to craft something that's like a magic item? It's going to take you roughly 5 days. 5 Bastion turns, probably. On average, 5 to 6 Bastion turns, and then you'd have enough to get yourself a common magic item. If you had the ability to craft common magic items. Well, 5 or 6 Bastion turns by 7, That's 5 or 6 weeks, really. So that's a month and a bit. It would be easier to just make magic items that are common by not having a bastion. I'm going to say it right now. Having a good idea of the crafting rules and the construction of stuff, it would actually probably be faster to just do it yourself. But of course, you would have to probably just do it yourself, wouldn't you? But at least in this case, you could get somebody else to do it if you have hirelings in that can craft. Okay, all right, I understand. That means getting an uncommon magic item would be 70. That's much harder to do. So multiply that by 3. It's about a month and a half. So 3 months, 4.5 months. No, it's probably going to even be longer than that. So you're probably looking at about 5 or 6 months to get a uncommon magic item built by crafting. I'm not really sad by that. I wouldn't really worry about this system is not going to spew out more magic items than the existing crafting system if you even use it. You're just not going to see that happening. So, yeah, if you were thinking that this crafting system that they've built into the Bastions is going to be overpowered compared to the existing crafting system that Wizards of the Coast has put out, absolutely don't think it's going to be the case at all. I just don't see it happening. What do we got here? Dragon rampages through your Bastion while you're gone. Start over, make your new Bastion. You're having too much fun there, Fred. I'm going to leave you to that. Okay, next. The DM rolls on the Bastion events table while you're maintaining in the maintenance order. Okay. And you see what happens. Bastion events are resolved during the next Bastion turn. Interesting. Okay. Hirelings recruiting creatures for your Bastion. So you can actually recruit. So if you lose hirelings, you can recruit more. All right, I see where they're going with this. There's a lot of resource management. This is turning the game into a really... I mean, I've run castles and strongholds before. I've had people who had flying castles and flying ships and manors and so forth. And I almost feel like there's probably a bit too much resource management tied into this. But if you wanted a complete system, I suppose this does all the work for you. I guess I could say that. Yeah. Research. Hirelings in the special facility gather information. You can also do the research yourself, but if you do so, the work is suspended when you leave the Bastion until you return. Okay, so exactly like before, you probably get your hirelings to do the research rather than yourself, but if you want to do the research yourself, you can, and you would just have to make sure you have enough downtime to get it done. And really, your downtime period is, what, 7 days. So as long as you've got 7 downtime days, you're all good. Okay, cool. That's fine. If your game master or dungeon master tells you you've got 7 days or 2 weeks of downtime, then you won't have too much of a problem with this. Trade. Hirelings can buy and sell goods or services stored or produced in this special facility. Okay. Now, I'm assuming that buying and selling doesn't mean buying and selling magic items, but because you're never going to get that many things crafted from your Bastion. So it would be foolish to try to turn it into a money-making venture. It's not going to work that way. Not at all. Okay, special facility descriptions. Let's have a look at this table that they've got here. Ooh, look at this. So, level 5 features. This is when you're starting out with your Bastion. What can you get? So, an arcane study. You need to have the ability to use an arcane focus or a spellcasting focus. So you need to be able to use a arcane focus as a spellcasting focus. Why could you just not say you need to be able to cast spells? I suppose some people dip in and just get a couple of spells from a feat, and they're really not letting you do that. So you really need to be arcane focused. Okay, all right. I see where they're going with this. That does eliminate some people just dabbling in magic, not really doing very much. And the order they can use for that, arcane study, is going to be crafting. So that's probably going to be most of your wizards, warlock, sorcerer, your, cleric, bard, bard, yeah, something like that. So I guess that's why they've done it that way, to eliminate. So I think that's fine. Armory, none. So no prerequisite if you have an armory. Trade. So you can trade weapons and armor that get made. Well, why is it that there's no prerequisite? I don't understand that one. I would think at least at a bare minimum you should have it smithing, as a proficient skill. That's your training is in smithy, in the smith. So I don't like that. That just opens it up. So it just basically says, like, it doesn't matter what you do, even if you're a fighter or whatever and you've got no training in smithing, you can have an armory. And your hirelings know how to make that because you just happen to hire a whole lot of blacksmiths. I suppose that's what they're trying to do there. I don't really, yeah. I'm not. It's like somebody opening a business, a restaurant, and the owner of the restaurant has no idea how to cook food and has no idea how to run a restaurant in the first place because they have never been a chef. This sort of thing does happen, right? So it's kind of like, oh, we've got somebody who owns a blacksmithing operation, but they have no idea how to make the weapons and armor themselves. They just hired a whole lot of people that know how to do it and then tell them what to do. Yeah, that's the modern way of doing things. Well done, Wizards of the Coast. You've incorporated it into the game. Okay, that's a little bit odd. The resource management is more on the players and the DMs, which helps. Yeah, I agree. I think the problem with resource management is as heavy as this is you have to have players who are really on top of it. You really and you should be on top of it if you're doing this sort of thing. You know, as a player, you should be able to deal with this, and you should be paying attention to making sure it's done right. The problem is that a lot of game masters won't include the system without at least having some checks and balances of their own. So they'll be tracking stuff themselves as well. So even though we're putting it on the players, the game masters will still be doing this. And I think this is partly where the problem lies. That's why when you're dealing with something like a bastion, a castle, a stronghold, making it more narrative and less mechanical and resource management is wiser and easier to deal with, because it's just a discussion between the players and the game master as to what they can achieve and what will happen, rather than having to count stuff up and calculate and add and determine when things are going to take place. But they really are trying hard to make it happen. Barracks, none. So recruitment. So you don't have to have any skills to recruit for a barracks. What are those barracks? I'm assuming these are defenders for your bastion, troops or guards or something like that. So there's no skills whatsoever required, no requirement. A garden. Of course, that's because everybody who starts a garden doesn't need to have any skills in that area, right? Because you just hire somebody who does know how to do that. Again, I'm not so much worried about the barracks thing because I don't know really what the barracks is for. I mean, the barracks, I'm assuming, is to recruit more hirelings that do various things, and so it would be kind of pointless to put a prerequisite for that because there'd be a vast array of different skills required to do that. Some hirelings are going to be doing different things to others, so they're not all going to be just soldiers and troops. Garden, I always find it amusing how when people look at a garden, they think anybody can start a garden. You don't have to have any skills to be able to make a garden successful. You know, running a garden's for dummies, right? It's just not true, by the way. I can assure you running a garden successfully does require some skill. A library, probably not quite so bad, I guess. I think all those ones there really are relying on the hirelings, not on the player character having something to bring to the whole thing. Yeah, I would have liked them to have some sort of requirement from the players to have to be able to do that, like the sage's background or whatever would work that would go with that. It makes more sense to do the research in a library. Maybe having the sage's background, having knowledge in nature or history or religion, things like that would be nice. But they haven't done that. What do we got here? Vault for coins, and somehow a coin mimic got in there, and the coins are not multiplying. Dear. Tell my dead corn that anybody can raise a garden. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. A sanctuary. Ability to use a holy symbol or druidic focus as a spellcasting focus. And that's crafting. So they can craft certain things in a sanctuary. So this is to apply to basically your cleric and your druid. Oh, that's fine. I think that's all good. Smithy. Also, armory is classified differently to smithy. So you can have an armory but not a smithy. So is the armory more about selling things that are collected or purchased from somewhere else? I guess I feel like the armory is not tied to the construction now. Now I'm starting to understand this. That's what it is. Because when you go adventuring, right, you tend to wind up collecting up a lot of weapons and armor from the monsters, and then what do you do with it? You go and sell it usually. Well, that's what your armory is going to do. It's a place for all that stuff to go. That's your dumping ground. Storehouse, none. I think that's fine. Storehouse, I don't think you necessarily have to have any major skills in storehouse, for a storage house. A workshop, expertise, and a skill, and they haven't stipulated what skill, so they've left that open. So the workshop, when you say workshop, is going to be doing crafting, but it probably will be in a very specific field. And I imagine that's what the game master will wind up doing with that. Well, that kind of makes sense. Yeah, why not? Next, a gaming hall, none. So that's trade. So this is gambling. Fine. Okay. All right. Sure. A greenhouse and garden. So none again, and that's trade. Yes, actually, running a greenhouse is even more difficult than running a garden. It is very easy to balls things up. You might say it's actually easier to run a greenhouse, but I actually think it's more difficult to run a greenhouse because you have to really stay on top of it. Otherwise, all your plants die and burn. Been there, done that. Used to work in a nursery, by the way, when I was a kid. A lot younger. Laboratory, none. And it's got a star beside it. What does the star mean? This is crafting. I'm not quite sure what that's all about. Sacristy, ability to use a holy symbol. So this is for clerics and druids, basically. Crafting. I'm not sure what that's supposed to do. They've got a lot of different special facilities that allow crafting. And gaming hall, I find it interesting. You don't get access to a gaming hall until level 9. All those other things were level 5. Now you're getting into the more complicated things, right? So you can only... Why is stable level 9? Why is stable not in here? It actually makes more sense that the arcane study be in the level 9 and the stable be at level 5. And what else? Greenhouse. I'd say, Steve, even the gaming hall and the greenhouse, why is that not here at level 5 rather than at level 9? That seems a little bit foolish. The sanctuary could go to level 9. Do you really want people being able to make magic items so early as like level 5? I don't know that that's necessary. It actually makes more sense that it's about level 9 that it starts to happen. Some of these things don't quite seem to be in the right place. Anyway, let's keep going down. Oh, we got some more. A teleportation circle at level 9, if you get to level 9, that is. There's no requirement. What a load of bullshit. Recruitment. So it can be used for recruiting. You're going to teleport everybody in. So how did you get the teleportation circle there in the first place? Surely you need to have access to the teleportation circle spell. That would be one of the things I would say with teleportation circle. You need to be able to put the teleportation circle in yourself. Otherwise, you don't get the damn thing. Theatre. Well, surely you would at least have a requirement in terms of being maybe a bard or a performer, having the performance skill, um, trained in musical instruments, being an actor. Like, there could be a whole bunch of things that go into this. But I think level 9 theatre, and they've gone here. I mean, theatre, why can't we not have that earlier? It makes much more sense to be at level 5. Training area. Oh, you've got to be kidding. Not till level 9 do you get it. In power. So you need to have expertise in a skill, fighting style feature, or an armored defense feature. So why don't just say you need to be a martial class? Just say that. That's what it's basically trying to say, right? A trophy room. Are you telling me that you cannot keep a trophy room until level 9? Not level 5, but level 9? There are no requirements. I have no problem with that. It doesn't have to have a requirement, a trophy room. And it's used for research. This makes no sense to me. I don't understand, why is it used for research? Frankly, I don't even know what a trophy room, other than to just sort of brag. I mean, really, trophy rooms are just a show off. Look how cool I am. That's really what they're about, right? I don't understand why we can't have that sooner. That's weird. Archives, level 13. Okay, none, no requirements at all, and it's research. I feel like an archive kind of at least requires something. I don't know what it would be necessarily, but this is a little bit weird. Anyway, let's have a look at the chat. How's it going, ET Base? How are you doing? That cramped Bastion could be in case of a criminal organization or a situation like the Soviet Union. Cramped spaces used to for multiple purposes. Sorry, late to the comment. Not a problem. Yeah, I know what you're saying this in jest, right? the cramped location. Hire someone who knows how to deal with the bottom of the deck for the gambling hall. Profit. Yeah. Business. Level 1 trophy room. Bunny heads on the wall. Yeah, absolutely. Why can I not have a trophy room at level 1? Or at least a trophy box. Even if I don't have a home yet. Yeah. Anyway, the trophy room's funny. Okay. The meditation chamber, so no requirements. I'm fine with that. Level 13. So you don't get a meditation chamber till level 13, and it's in power as well. Okay. Menagerie, what the hell is that? No requirement. I'm not sure how to respond to that one. Level 13 too, and it's recruitment. So you're going to recruit. Do you recruit monsters? Is that what you do? Level 13, you've got observatory. Yeah, I'm fine with that. Ability to use spellcasting focus. So basically, unless you are a spellcaster, you're not using this. And this is in power. Why is it in power when it's an observatory? I don't understand. A pub. Why can I not have a pub sooner? I have to wait till level 13 before I can have a pub. No requirements. Fine. I'm all right with that one. Research. How is a pub connected to research other than to collect a whole lot of bullshit rumors and gossip? Let's get real. I mean, it's a pub, right? You're not going to get reliable information through the pub. And we can't get it to level 13. It's really funny. Okay. Reliquary. I can't. I'm losing my mouth. It's not working. So this is for clerics and druids. Harvest. What the heck are we harvesting there? 13. So, a demi-plane at level 17. I agree with that. If you're going to give them a demi-plane, and they always want to have some demi-planes hanging out in somebody's mage tower or arcane tower. Oh, by the way, we're adding arcane tower to this program, by the way. It will be a little way off, but it is coming. Ability to use an arcane focus or spell. Basically, you've got to be a spellcaster. A dedicated spellcaster. In power. I'm okay. I'm not sure what that... Yeah, okay, sure. A guild hall. Not till level 17 do you get a guild hall. Shizers. Expertise and a skill. So that's the only way you're going to get it, is expertise and a skill. Recruitment. Okay, so the rogue will probably deal with that. I don't know why it needs to be level 17. Sanctum. Ability to use... Okay, so basically clerics and druids. In power again, a war room at level 7. You can't get a war room until level 17. You need to have, basically you're going to be a martial style, unarmored defense feature or fighting style, and that's recruitment. Okay, star means certain orders that can be issued to these facilities have additional prerequisites. Whew. Whew. Okay, all right, so there's a lot of different special facilities here. And if I go through the special facilities, which I will very quickly, I would like to come back to these people. Honestly, I would actually like to come back and talk more about them. And we probably will, because this program is really much, very much about running adventures in specific locations. So I'm going to go through these in this short space of time I still have left, because I can't afford to get to work late again. Keep doing that. And then we'll come back to these for sure. Okay? That's sort of my thoughts on this. Menagerie is having a bunch of pets in cages. Oh, okay, so we've got a zoo. That's a zoo. Harvesting gold from tourists. Charge admission. Yeah, probably. Okay, so first off, what do we actually know about this? So 1 hireling is required for an arcane study. And that's a level 5 thing that you can get. And you're crafting, so the order is crafting, and you get 1d4 BP. Same as maintenance. Okay. All right, so we know how that works. And then it has a bit of information on what you can craft. When you issue the order for crafting in this facility, choose one of the following options. Craft Arcane Focus. You can commission the facility's hireling to craft an Arcane Focus. The work takes 7 days and costs no money. The Arcane Focus remains in the Bastion until you claim it. It would be easier just to go and buy an Arcane Focus. You could just go down to the general shop and buy one. Why would you bother doing that? It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Next. Craft a book. You commission the facility's hireling to craft a blank book. The work takes 7 days and costs 10 gold pieces. Are you shitting me? The book remains in your Bastion until yes, or it can be sold for 25 gold pieces. So in other words, you could use it to make a bit of money on the side, I suppose. But you could just go buy, if you need another book, like a spell book, you could just go buy a spell book, right? Usually game masters let you do that. I'm not too sure that this is, I don't think either of these are very impressive right now. Not to worry about. I mean, if they stay there, it's fine. I don't think they're necessarily going to get used very often. The Arcane Study also imparts the following benefit. Cast Identify. After spending a long rest in your Bastion, you can cast Identify once within the next 7 days without expending a spell slot or using material components. Now that, considering you always needed to have a diamond worth 100 gold pieces, that material component has always been sort of a big restriction. By level 5 though, you have one. You probably have a diamond worth 100 gold pieces. Or a bunch of them with 100 gold pieces, and it's not expended anyway, so it's not like it gets burnt up or used up. It's just, you just need to use that to focus the magic through it. I mean, it's fine, but yeah, you can craft stuff with crafting, so at least, yeah, I suppose these are just little things that they can do. Okay, so the archive, you don't get this to level 13. Research, so 1d8 Bastion points could be earned. So on average on about 4. And it's got 1 hireling required for that location. Okay. Did I miss it? Where do you figure out how many hirelings your Bastion has? Is there a certain number of hirelings you get? Did I miss that completely? Did I skip it? I must have whizzed past that little section. We messed with the wizard spellbook in early D&D, making them roll save versus it burning. Yeah, no, that's annoying. That's really annoying when burning up a wizard spellbook is kind of I'd say it's a shit move. It's a shit move. Let's get real. Okay, roomy. So you need to have a roomy. So there's almost all of this stuff. It would be silly to have a special facility. You're not going to go special facility crammed. It's got to have some room. Not vast, but it's middle of the road sort of stuff. Okay, all right. So I see where we're going with this. Archive. What can the archive actually do? An archive is a repository of valuable books, scrolls, and maps. It is usually attached to a library behind a locked or secret door. Okay. Your archive contains one copy of a rare and valuable reference book chosen from the options in the reference book table. While you and this book are in the Bastion, you gain the book's benefits as noted in the table. Your DM might make other reference books available. Okay, so in other words, you can adjust it. When you use, and you probably will anyway, when you issue the research order in this facility, you commission the facility's hirelings to search the archive for help for lore. The work takes 7 days, Okay, so let's have a look and see what these reference books are. Bigby's Handy Arcane Codex. You have advantage on intelligence arcana checks when you take the study action to recall lore about spells, magic. Okay, so basically, yeah, advantage on intelligence and arcana checks. Fine. The Chronos Beast Chronicles. Is it Chronopieces? Advantage on intelligence history. So this is related to history, events, legendary people, arcane, ancient kingdoms, past disputes, war, and lost civilizations. Investigation of the inquisitive. So that's advantage on intelligence investigation checks. Okay. All right. So that was history. Material musings and on the nature of the world's things. You have advantage on intelligence nature checks. So this is around plants, terrain, animals, weather, natural cycles. Okay. The old faith and other religions. So this is going to be advantage on intelligence religion checks. For holy symbols, practices of secret cults, hierarchy, rituals, prayers, deities, law. Okay. All right. Enlarging an archive. You can enlarge your archive to vast facility by spending 2,000 gold pieces. If you do so, you gain 2 additional reference books chosen from the reference books table. All right. So how many reference books do you get? Hireling. So research order. 1 copy. So you get 1 copy. So you could push it out more if you wanted to. All right, I see. Yeah, Bigby's book of insulting gestures. Absolutely. All right, armory. So that's 1d4 Bastion points for that one. Armory. I'm kind of curious about the armory a little bit more. There's the barracks. I've kind of run out of time. So that's 1d4 Bastion points for the barracks. We've kind of covered that. Table was very helpful though. And you can enlarge the barracks if you want to. Demiplane. Demiplane is 1d10 Bastion points. So having a demiplane is a good thing, obviously, because you get more Bastion points. I don't know what all of the stuff is. Scry proof. So that's nice. So you don't have to worry about somebody scrying on you. You can using divination magic. Lovely. A gaming hall. All right. So there's an opportunity to run a gambling den, and there's a table for this. I think this is useful. I mean, even if you're not using the Bastion system, I mean, even the gaming hall section is kind of useful. I mean, a couple of them are really just on their own. The garden, not the guardian. It's 1d4 Bastion points that you earn when you're using it. 1d6 for the gaming hall. And you can have a decorative garden, a food garden, a herb garden, a poison garden. Ooh, yeah, there you go. You want to have some poisons, rogues? You want to have a garden. Yep, grow your own. All natural. Garden harvesting. So there's some information on garden harvesting. I'm not going to read through that because I feel like we're going to have to come back to this. The greenhouse. So harvesting healing herbs and poisons. So that's the greenhouse. So that's what it covers. 1d6 Bastion points if you're going to be using it. Okay. And then it looks like the guild hall, which is high level, is 1d10 Bastion points. You get a lot for that. You need to have a vast area though. You need to have a pretty pimped out location. It's not going to work otherwise. So you can see there are, I don't think I've seen crammed on any of these special facilities. You're going to have either roomy or vast. Sample guilds, so they've given you an idea of the different types of guilds you might have. So this is not this is what you get. This is just, these are examples. You know, you want to have a bakery, fine. You want an adventurous guild, fine. You want a brewers, you want to make piss, you can. Cartographers, fine. Entertainer, jeweler, masons, shipbuilders, thieves, great. And they've got some stuff around it. I haven't had a chance to have a look at all of it, but I actually think a lot of this is going to be easy to sort of poach. And then you got a roomy required for a laboratory, and it's 1d6 Bastion points. So you can make a liquid concoction. You can make poisons. There's a lot of time designated to making poisons, crafting a potion. And it's given you how long it will take, the minimum level. Well, it's not how long it will take, is it? How long it take? No, it'll be 7 days, right? But then the cost. I see problems with the cost on some of the stuff. Do I? Common, 200. Rare, 2000. Yeah, it's probably about right. Although I would at least have thought that making potions would be slightly cheaper than full-blown permanent magic items. But anyway, library, 1d4 Bastion points. You need to have, it needs to be roomy. So each of these seem to have, generally they seem to require one hireling. In some cases there's no hireling. Meditation chamber doesn't require a hireling, but you get 1d8 Bastion points for it. Okay. Fortifying yourself, so you get some benefits. 2 kinds of saving throws for the next day, so advantage on 2 saving throws. Oh, I see. So that's what that's all about. Okay, all right. And there it is. A menagerie. You need to have 2 hirelings, otherwise that ain't going to work. 2 hirelings for that. 1d8 Bastion points are earned when you use this thing. And it looks like creatures. You can have various creatures in here. I've got to come back and have a look at this sometime. This is going to be entertaining. Observatory, 1 hireling, 1d8 Bastion points. And what does it do? It's really... Yeah, I'm not going to have time to read that. I should be gone by now. And then we have the pub. Who doesn't want to have a pub? But waiting till level 3 is going to, level 13 is going to be a bit of a drag. And then we have the pub. Beverages, various beverages, enlarging the pub. That'll be the first thing we do. Oh dear, okay. All right, so this, look, I'm going to say right now, whether you like the Bastion system or not, I'm going to say right now, I think the Bastion system has a lot going for it, at least in terms of some of the stuff that they've kind of given you. I don't understand what the hell's going on with this stable, though, frankly. I think that's really weird. I don't understand why it's working that way. Storeroom. Teleportation circle, don't understand why there's no prerequisite for that one. And the theatre. Okay, all right. Training area, trophy room. The trophy room has got to be the strangest one of the sum. So, look. I would at least have a look at it and poach what you like from it and ditch what you don't and change what you want to change. Full of the Bastion. So this is Bastion events. Oh, let's have a look. Nothing happens. There's an attack against it. Lost hirelings. Oh gosh, that's gonna suck. Refugees. Oh, that'll suck more. Friendly visitors. Request for aid. That's all right. Friendly visitors, good. Honoured guest, great. Extraordinary opportunity, good news. Criminal hirelings, I don't know why, sounds trouble. And then magical discovery. All right, so there's a few different things. I don't think this table was necessarily put there to eliminate the game master coming up with other things that they could do. I think this table, if anything, is just an example. Yeah, for sure, it's just an example. Well, that was interesting. I didn't get through the whole thing. But since, as I've said before, most of this is this program that I do on a Sunday for me in New Zealand is really about talking about castles and dungeons and other things. I have no doubt that we'll revisit some of these ideas for sure. I still think, even though it does feel very management resource hungry for players and game masters, and it probably could do with being just a little bit easier and simpler to figure out. At least they're giving it a go. Like, I've been complaining about Wizards of the Coast not doing anything with it for years, and they've finally got to a point where they're actually doing something with it. So that's at least good news, right? Teleportation Circle should require hiring a wizard for a year to cast it daily. I think Teleportation Circle really should require. I don't want you to hire a wizard. I almost feel like it should be just something that whoever can cast Teleportation Circle is the one who can have that one. And it's just off the boards otherwise. There are other ways of traveling quickly from one place to another. You don't have to have that one. But anyway, look, I just want to say a big, huge thank you for everybody who's been hanging out with me as I go through this thing. As I said, I will return to this topic in the future because it interests me. And they're finally doing something with it, which they haven't done like for 3 decades. Or is it 2 decades? It's a long time. Yeah, at least 2 decades, right? Because Wizards of the Coast has never really delved into this at all. So I want to say a huge thank you to my patrons and everybody who's been watching, taking part in the poll. I see, are you aware of the new Bastion system by Wizards of the Coast? No, 59%. Yes, 31%. Just watching, 9% out of 22 votes. Cool. So thank you, Fred Huber, for being here. E.T. Base, it was great to have a chat with you. And Nacho Man Derp, who's been hanging out and throwing in his 2 cents. And the Cax Max, Charles Butler, Trenton. Like all of you have, it's been good to hang out and at least talk about a topic that we talk about so often, and finally Wizards of the Coast is getting the message. So look, wherever you are in the world, whether it's the morning, the afternoon, the night, or the wee early morning, please look after yourself, your family, and your friends. Be nice to your neighbours, and hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s.